Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing something a little different, but super helpful for your English journey. We're going to listen in on a conversation between a taxi driver and a passenger, Charlotte, who's learning English, and we'll break down some common mistakes and show you how to fix them. It's all about making your English sound more natural and confident, especially in everyday situations. Let's dive in. Our passenger gets in the taxi and says,
Hello, I want go to hotel.
"Ah, a common one." The passenger said, "I want go to hotel." The first mistake here is missing the little word to after want. When you want to do an action, you usually say want to plus verb infinitive. So, part of the correct way to say it is, "Hello, I want to go." Also, when talking about a general hotel, we often use a before it. A hotel. If you have a specific hotel in mind that the driver might know, you could say the hotel. So now we have, "Hello, I want to go to a hotel." And here's a pro tip to make your requests even better and more polite, especially when talking to someone providing a service like a taxi driver. Add please at the end. So, the most polite and natural way to say this would be, "Hello, I want to go to a hotel, please." It makes a big difference.
Hello, I want to go to a hotel, please.
Sure. Which hotel are you going to?
It name Happy Stay Hotel. You know it?
The first part, it name Happy Stay Hotel, is missing a crucial word. Is. When you're talking about the name of something, you need that verb. So it should be, its name is Happy Stay Hotel. You could also say, it's called Happy Stay Hotel, which is very common and natural. Both are perfectly good ways to introduce the name. Then our Charlotte asks, "You know it?" While understandable, for a question like this in English, we almost always need an auxiliary verb, usually do. So it should be, "Do you know it?" Or, even more naturally in this context, "Do you know that one?" referring to that specific hotel. We use "do you know" to ask if someone has information or familiarity with something.
It's called Happy Stay Hotel. Do you know it?
Oh, yeah, I know that one. It's about 20 minutes from here.
The driver says, "It's about 20 minutes from here." This is a great phrase for talking about distance or travel time. When you want to say how long it takes to get somewhere or how far away something is, you can use number minutes or hours from place. For example, the airport is 30 minutes from the city center. Or, my home is 5 hours from the beach. Simple and useful.
Okay, it's good. You can go fast. I late.
All right. Okay, it's good. Isn't quite what a native speaker would typically say there. Think about it this way. When you say it's good, you're usually talking about something being of good quality or a good situation. Like, this coffee is good, or it's good that you're here. But in this taxi conversation, the driver just told the passenger how long the trip would take. The passenger isn't really saying the time itself is good in quality. They're acknowledging the information and basically saying, "That's acceptable." Or, "I understand." So, to make it sound more natural and flowing, a native speaker would probably say something like, "Okay, that's fine. This shows acceptance of the time." All right. This is a very common informal way to acknowledge and agree. Got it, meaning, I understand the information. Any of these would fit perfectly and sound much more like a real human responding in that moment. Then Charlotte asks, "You can go fast?" This is a common way to phrase a question in many languages. But in English, when you ask if someone is able to do something, you usually start with, "Can you?" or "Could you?" So it should be, "Can you go fast?" Or, even more politely, "Could you go faster?" Here, you add faster if you want to speed up from the current pace. And finally, I late. This is missing a very important little word. To say you are late, you need the verb am. So, it's I am late, or the common contraction, I'm late. Remember, late is an adjective, and adjectives need a form of to be. Am, is, are before them.
All right. Could you go fast? I'm late.
I'll go as fast as I can, but there's a bit of traffic.
The driver uses two excellent phrases here. First, I'll go as fast as I can. This structure, as adjective as, is used to compare things that are equal, or to talk about doing something to the maximum possible degree. For example, I'm as tall as my brother, or run as fast as you can. The driver means he will drive at his maximum speed. And then he says, there's a bit of traffic. First, let's look at the word traffic itself. When we talk about traffic on the road, we're talking about all the vehicles moving along the roads, like cars, trucks, and motorcycles. So, if there's a lot of traffic, it means there are many vehicles, and they're usually moving slowly or are stopped. Now, let's put it together with a bit of. The phrase a bit of means a small amount of something. We use a bit of with things that we can't easily count individually, like water, time, or in this case, traffic. So, when the driver says there's a bit of traffic, he means there's a small amount of congestion or slow-moving cars on the road. It's not a complete standstill, but it's enough to cause some delays and prevent him from going as fast as he'd like. It's a polite way of saying, things are a little busy on the road.
Always have traffic. My country same.
Charlotte replies, always have traffic, my country same. Instead of always have traffic, it's more natural to say, there's always traffic, or we always have traffic. This just sounds more like how a native speaker would phrase it. And for my country same, we need the verb is and the word the. So, it should be, my country is the same. We use the same when we're comparing something and saying it's not different.
There's always traffic. My country is the same.
Yeah, big cities are all the same.
You drive taxi how many years?
Finally, our Charlotte asks, you drive taxi how many years? This is a common question, but the English structure is a bit different. The correct way to ask about a duration of time, especially an action that started in the past and continues now, is to use the present perfect continuous or present perfect. So, how many years have you been driving a taxi? Or simply, how long have you driven a taxi? Are much more natural. This is where we need to use either the present perfect or the present perfect continuous tense to ask about how long an action has been happening up until now. The act of driving a taxi started in the past, and it's still continuing now. When an action began in the past and is still ongoing or relevant to the present, these are the tenses we use. How many years have you been driving a taxi? This uses the present perfect continuous have been driving. It emphasizes the continuity of the action. The driving started in the past and is still happening. This is often the most natural choice for questions about duration. How long have you driven a taxi? This uses the present perfect, have driven. It also connects the past action to the present, focusing on the result or experience up to now. While how many years or how long, followed by the present perfect continuous, is often preferred for ongoing actions. The simple present perfect is still correct here.
How many years have you been driving a taxi?
About 12 years now. I've seen a lot of places.
And the driver says, "About 12 years now. I've seen a lot of places." Did you notice the "I've seen"? This is the present perfect tense. The driver uses the present perfect tense, "I have seen" or "I've seen," because he's talking about an experience that started in the past, 12 years ago, and continues up to the present moment. He still drives a taxi, and he still has the experience of seeing places. The present perfect connects the past with the present. Now, for a super effective way to practice, we're going to do some shadowing. If you're new to shadowing, it's where you listen to a native speaker and try to repeat what they say almost simultaneously, mimicking their rhythm and intonation. It's fantastic for fluency. Here's how we'll do it. You first listen to the entire conversation, without subtitles. Just focus on how the conversation flows and try to get the overall meaning. Then you'll hear the conversation again, but this time with English subtitles to help you understand clearly. After each sentence, please repeat aloud. Try to match the speaker's pronunciation and rhythm. Finally, we'll play each line in the conversation one more time. Again, listen carefully. Pay attention to the pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm before repeating after each line. You'll speak naturally, just like a native speaker, in no time.
Hello, I want to go to a hotel, please.
Sure. Which hotel are you going to?
It's called Happy Stay Hotel. Do you know it?
Oh yeah, I know that one. It's about 20 minutes from here.
All right. Could you go fast? I'm late.
I'll go as fast as I can, but there's a bit of traffic.
There's always traffic. My country is the same.
Yeah, big cities are all the same.
How many years have you been driving a taxi?
About 12 years now. I've seen a lot of places.
Hello, I want to go to a hotel, please.
Sure. Which hotel are you going to?
It's called Happy Stay Hotel. Do you know it?
Oh yeah, I know that one. It's about 20 minutes from here.
All right. Could you go fast? I'm late.
I'll go as fast as I can, but there's a bit of traffic.
There's always traffic. My country is the same.
Yeah, big cities are all the same.
How many years have you been driving a taxi?
About 12 years now. I've seen a lot of places.
Hello, I want to go to a hotel, please. Hello. Hello.
I want to go. I want to go to a hotel, please. To a hotel, please.
Hello, I want to go to a hotel, please.
Sure. Which hotel are you going to? Sure. Sure. Which hotel are you going to? Which hotel are you going to? Sure. Which hotel are you going to?
It's called Happy Stay Hotel. Do you know it? It's called Happy Stay Hotel. It's called Happy Stay Hotel. Do you know it? Do you know it? It's called Happy Stay Hotel. Do you know it?
Oh yeah, I know that one. It's about 20 minutes from here. Oh yeah, I know that one. Oh yeah, I know that one. It's about 20 minutes from here. It's about 20 minutes from here. Oh yeah, I know that one. It's about 20 minutes from here.
All right. Could you go fast? I'm late. All right. All right. Could you go fast? Could you go fast? I'm late. I'm late. All right. Could you go fast? I'm late.
I'll go as fast as I can, but there's a bit of traffic.
I'll go as fast as I can. I'll go as fast as I can. But there's a bit of traffic. But there's a bit of traffic.
I'll go as fast as I can, but there's a bit of traffic.
There's always traffic. My country is the same. There's always traffic. There's always traffic. My country is the same. My country is the same. There's always traffic. My country is the same.
Yeah, big cities are all the same. Yeah, big cities are all the same.
How many years have you been driving a taxi?
How many years? How many years have you been driving a taxi? Driving a taxi?
How many years have you been driving a taxi?
About 12 years now. I've seen a lot of places. About 12 years now. About 12 years now. I've seen a lot of places. I've seen a lot of places. About 12 years now. I've seen a lot of places.
How did that feel? Don't worry if it was tricky at first. The more you practice shadowing, the more natural these phrases will become. You can rewatch this section as many times as you like to keep practicing. If you enjoyed this practice session, give us a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss our next lesson. Let us know in the comments if you found this helpful and what other English situations you'd like to practice. Thanks for watching and happy learning. See you next time.